Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she needs to stop trying to control my life? I didn't think I'd find myself writing on Reddit about my struggles, but here I am, hoping maybe to find some clarity in this tangled mess of family drama. I've debated long and hard about whether I'm being the unreasonable one or if my sister is the real problem. Given the title of the subreddit, you can probably guess where I'm leaning. Here's the backstory. I'm a 28-year-old woman. Let's call me Lisa, who has always been pretty independent. After our mother passed away when I was 18, I took it upon myself to navigate adulthood without the safety nets most people have. My father was a good man, but he worked long hours to keep us afloat, often leaving my sister and me to fend for ourselves. Fast forward 10 years, and I'm now living in a small but cozy apartment in a city that I love, working as a graphic designer and enjoying my life. I don't have a strict 9 to 5. I freelance, which allows me a lot of flexibility. If I want to go to the beach on a Tuesday, I can. If I want to pull an all-nighter binge-watching my favorite series, I can do that too. But there's one thing I can't escape. My older sister, Karen. Karen is 32 and fiercely protective. Let's just say she took on the role of the mother figure after our mother passed. It started off as an admirable trait, making sure I ate right and did well in school. But as I grew older, her concern morphed into what I can only describe as obsessive control. She constantly checks on me, offers unsolicited advice, and seems to think she knows what's best for my life. For instance, she's already convinced that I should be married by now, have kids, and have a real job with benefits. Meanwhile, I'm over here thriving in my freelance work and enjoying dating without serious commitments. A few months ago, an incident occurred that was the tipping point. I had plans to go on a weekend getaway with a few friends to a cabin in the woods. It was nothing extravagant, just a chance to relax, hike, and spend some quality time with people who get me. I casually mentioned it to Karen during our weekly FaceTime, and the moment I did, her face went pale. She immediately launched into a lecture about how I should be saving my money instead of wasting it on a trip, and questioned my friend's intentions. The more she talked, the more annoyed I became. My friends are wonderful human beings, and I trust them completely. But Karen was relentless. She said things like, "What if something happens? You're alone in the woods with all those people. You could get hurt or lost. And you need to be careful. It's too risky." Finally, feeling exasperated, I snapped, "You need to stop trying to control my life, Karen. I'm not a child. I can make my own decisions, and you need to respect that." It wasn't my proudest moment, yelling at my sister like that, but the frustration of her overprotectiveness boiled over. The conversation took a sharp turn into silence, and when I added, "Why can't you just let me live my life?" I could hear the hurt in her breath. Days passed and my getaway approached. Karen texted me frequently, pressuring me to cancel, reminding me about every possible disaster that could go wrong. Eventually, I posted a photo from the trip on Instagram, enjoying a bonfire with my friends. I knew it would upset her. But after holding it in for so long, I felt entitled to celebrate my independence. Her response was immediate, a barrage of disappointed texts. My heart sank when I noticed her message. "I can't believe you went. I'm worried sick. You need to grow up, Lisa. Life isn't just fun and games. It's serious." At that point, I decided I needed to set a boundary. I typed out a message. "I appreciate your concern, but I'm doing fine. Please stop trying to dictate how I should live my life. This isn't working for me anymore. I love you, but I need space." I hit send and felt both guilt and relief crash over me like waves. When I returned from the trip, things felt strained. Karen barely spoke to me. She showed up at my apartment a week later, and the tension was palpable. I could tell she was hurt. Hurt that I didn't heed her warnings, hurt because no one likes feeling disregarded. But I was also hurt because it felt like she didn't trust me to make my own choices. During that visit, I mustered up the courage to address the elephant in the room. "Karen," I began, choosing my words carefully, "I love you, and I appreciate how much you care, but you can't keep trying to control my life. I'm an adult." She looked at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I just want to protect you. We lost Mom, and I don't want to lose you too. I know you think you're fine, but you don't know everything that could go wrong. I softened, realizing this was about more than just my independence. It was her fear of losing the last bits of family we had left. I get that you're scared, but I can take care of myself, and I need you to trust me. We both deserve a chance to live our lives freely. The conversation lingered in the air, heavy with unsaid words and long-lost childhood memories. In the end, we didn't solve all our issues that day, but I sensed a slow thawing in her demeanor. As I write this now, I'm still grappling with it all. I want my sister in my life, but I don't want her to feel like she has to control me. I fear I might have hurt her too deeply, but I think it needed to be said. Am I the a-hole for confronting her over this, for trying to assert my independence, while also recognizing her fears? Maybe I should have been kinder about it. Maybe there was a better way to express my need for autonomy without wounding her heart. But I also believe that boundaries are necessary. So here I am, on this platform, hoping you all can shed some light on my situation. Am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for telling my sister the truth about her husband? I never thought I would find myself typing out this post on Reddit, baring my soul to complete strangers. But here I am, desperate for clarity on a situation that has turned my life into an emotional maze. Buckle up, because this is not a light tale. My name is Emily, and I'm 32 years old. I have a younger sister, Sarah, who is 28. We've always been close, even after she married Stephen, a man I initially thought was perfect for her. They tied the knot a little over 2 years ago, and for the first year, everything seemed blissful. But I started noticing some unsettling changes in Stephen's behavior and my sister's disposition. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I kept my observations to myself. One evening, I decided to swing by their place to catch up over dinner. I arrived a little late. Traffic was a nightmare. But when I walked in, something felt off. Sarah was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables with an expression of forced joy, while Stephen lounged on the sofa, scrolling through his phone, barely acknowledging my presence. As dinner progressed, I struggled to ignore the tension smothering the room. Sarah kept glancing at Stephen, whose eyes barely left the screen of his phone. I tried to lighten the mood with jokes, but he shot me down with one-word replies. By the time dessert arrived, I couldn't hold back any longer. Is everything okay with you two? I asked, eyeing Stephen carefully. His response was a snort, followed by a dismissive wave. Sarah tried to brush it off, but it was clear something was brewing under the surface. When I finally got her alone in the kitchen, I asked her point blank, "Sarah, is there something wrong between you and Stephen?" "You can talk to me," I said, taking her hands in mine. After a long pause, she broke down, and the floodgates opened. She shared how Stephen had become increasingly detached, often spending his evenings out with friends instead of coming home. The worst part, she found out, he was spending nights texting someone else, claiming it was just a friend. The gut punch of betrayal made my stomach churn. My sister deserved better. My heart raced as I processed her words. "You need to talk to him about this. This isn't normal, Sarah," I implored. But she seemed resigned, insisting she didn't want to start another argument and that she just wanted him to be happy. I spent the next few weeks torn. I loved my sister, and investigating more about Stephen felt like betrayal. But every time I saw her looking lost and empty, I wondered if I was being complicit in her suffering by staying silent. Finally, I decided to confront Stephen directly. One afternoon, I invited him out for coffee. It was an unusual arrangement, but I had to know if my sister really was just overeager in her worries, or if they were justified. As I sat across from him in a quiet cafe, I gathered my thoughts. Perhaps I could put things gently. "So, Stephen, how's married life treating?" "You?" He looked up from his coffee, casually shrugging. "It's all right, I guess. Just doing my thing." I couldn't hold back. "Sarah seems a little upset lately. Is everything okay between you two?" His demeanor shifted. His eyes narrowed. "Why are you asking about my marriage?" he snapped, his tone shifting. I took a deep breath, trying to remain composed. Because I care about her and she's been worried about you. It seems like you're keeping something from her. Mind your business, Emily, he said coldly. If Sarah has issues, she can talk to me. I watched as his aggression came to the surface. Clearly, I had trodden on a sensitive nerve. You're hurting her, and you know it, I pressed, feeling a surge of protectiveness for my sister. Stephen leaned forward, and for a moment I glimpsed the rage brewing inside him. You have no clue what goes on between us, so stop pretending to be the moral compass. I exited that cafe shaken, feeling the weight of my actions. Should I have confronted him? It didn't matter. I wanted her to see the truth about her husband. I had to tell her. The following evening, Sarah and I were together at my apartment for our usual sister night. We drank wine and nibbled on cheese while watching a rom-com. Midway through the movie, I turned to her, ready to drop the bombshell. Sarah, can we talk? Her expression soured. I don't want to talk about Stephen. Can we please just enjoy our time? I took a deep breath, forcing myself to be brave. I think you should know what I found out today. She shifted uncomfortably, her eyes narrowing. What do you mean? Did Stephen tell you something? No, I talked to him, and he was rude. He's not the man you think he is. I tried to weave in the details as gently as I could, highlighting his dismissiveness and how he wasn't being honest with her. At first, her silence was deafening. Then, her eyes clouded with disbelief. You're lying, she said, her voice trembling. Sarah, please, just look at how he treats you. I care about you, and I would never intentionally hurt you. She turned away and began pacing. Why? Can't you just let me be happy? She snapped. You're always trying to control everything in my life. How is this controlling? I'm trying to protect you. My heart cracked at her words. The last thing I wanted was to push her away. Standing there, I watched as tears streamed down her face. You don't understand. I love Stephen. Maybe he's not perfect, but neither am I. I don't need you to save me, Emily. It felt like a slap to the face. I wasn't here to save her. I was here to give her a chance at happiness. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, her cries echoing in my ears. Days turned into a week, and during that time, I felt like I had lost my sister. My phone sat silent. No texts, no calls. Each moment that transpired felt heavier, as the flame of guilt began burning in my chest. When I finally got a call from her, my heart leaped. Hesitantly picking up, I was met with a stoic voice. Can we meet? She asked. We met at a small park that weekend, the sun casting a warm glow on everything, yet I felt an icy chill settle in my gut. She approached me slowly, a tangible crumpling of her heart in her eyes. I don't want to fight, she said softly, but I can't believe you told me those things. I felt tears prick my eyes. Sarah, I told you because I love you. I didn't want to see you hurt. I need to figure things out for myself, she replied. I love him, and while he may not be perfect, he's still my husband. The words haunted me. But love shouldn't feel like this. I can't believe you're turning this into a lesson about love. Her voice had taken a sharp edge. You're attacking my relationship. The conversation turned tense, an unyielding wall looming between us. We walked in silence, and I wasn't sure whether to reach out or keep my distance. The days that followed were long. I held on to the hope of reconciliation, longing for the sisterly bond we once shared. But every time I texted or called, I was met with silence, an emotional stone wall. A month passed like this, punctuated only by distant memories of laughter. Then one evening I received a text from her. Can we talk? We met at the same park, and the air held a sense of resolve. I talked to Stephen, she said, her voice steadier than before. My heart raced. Did he? I confronted him about everything. He denied it all, of course, but it made me realize some things. I deserve better. I watched as a hint of strength began to fill her voice. He hasn't treated me right. I was blinded by love. I let myself believe in a lie. "Sarah, you're so strong," I breathed, relief flooding through me. I moved forward to embrace her, and this time she hugged me back tightly. It took time, weeks of conversations, therapy sessions, and soul-searching. She began to prioritize her self-worth over the toxic dynamics of her marriage. Finally, months later, the papers were served. She was ready to free herself. In the end, I couldn't shake the guilt I felt over spilling the truth, but standing by my sister's side as she walked away from a toxic relationship filled me with a sense of purpose. I had urged her to confront her reality, and in the face of adversity, she emerged more resilient than ever. Now I find myself asking, am I the a-hole for telling her the truth? Maybe I bent the rules of sisterhood, but love must sometimes wear heavy armor to protect what's most precious. I don't regret my decisions, and I pray she keeps cherishing her newfound strength. After all, the greatest gift we can give one another is the courage to seek out the truth, even in the darkest times. Am I the a-hole for refusing to share my cancer diagnosis with my family? I've never been one to post personal things on social media, but I find myself in a complicated situation and really need some outside perspective. I'm a 34-year-old woman named Eliza, and I've been grappling with a recent diagnosis that's dominated my life and changed everything for me. After several months of fatigue, unexplained pain, and testing, I was finally diagnosed with breast cancer. My world turned upside down the moment I heard those words. I've spent the past few weeks processing the reality of my diagnosis. The fear, the uncertainty, and the sheer weight of it all has been overwhelming. Alongside this emotional burden, I've had to confront the fact that now, more than ever, I'm faced with decisions about who to tell and how much to say about what I'm going through. My family's very close. We're that stereotypical, we'll drop everything for each other type of family. I'm the oldest of 3 kids, and my parents have always been there for us, through thick and thin. That support, however, has also come with a lot of expectations. I've always been the strong one, the caregiver. Whenever a sibling had an issue, I was the first to jump in and help. I'd like to believe I'm a backbone of the family, but the responsibility of that role can be suffocating. With my diagnosis, I made the conscious decision to keep my health situation to myself until I felt ready. I know my family would mean well, but I didn't want the overwhelming tidal wave of their concern to crash onto my already anxious mind. I told myself that once I was sure of my treatment plan and how I was going to tackle this beast, I'd let them in. A weeks passed, and I began to notice changes in my family dynamic. My siblings seemed to be rallying their own support systems, sharing seemingly innocuous updates on their lives, all while I felt like I was watching the world through a glass wall. While I felt isolated, I was also comforted by the idea that I didn't want to burden anyone with my struggles. I justified it by saying I needed to focus on myself first. However, my secret began to weigh heavily on me. My younger sister, Mia, invited me over for a girls' night, and I let myself be swept away in laughter and pints of ice cream, momentarily forgetting about my storm. But as I watched her excitedly share about her recent promotion at work, I felt an insistent throb in my chest. Mia was so animated, so hopeful about her future, and I felt like a ghost in her happiness. It all came to a head when my other sibling, Callum, announced his engagement at a family dinner. The room erupted. In joy and celebration, my parents were over the moon, embracing him and his fiancée like they were beloved celebrities. As I sat there clapping, I felt hollow and burdened. Suddenly, it didn't feel like a celebration anymore. It felt like a reminder of everything I was hiding and everything I couldn't celebrate. It felt like a selfish act to keep my struggle hidden while they had so much good happening. The next day, I could feel the impulse building within me. I called Mia and asked her if we could meet for coffee. When we sat down across from each other, fraught with anticipation, I suddenly felt the weight of my words so much heavier. As she took a sip of her coffee, I realized I was so desperate to share what I was dealing with that the words came rushing out almost before I could slow them down. "Mia," I started waveringly, "I have something to tell you." And in a torrent of emotion, I unleashed my truth. I shared everything. the diagnosis, the fear that has clung to me, the anger I felt at the cancer taking over my life. To her credit, Mia was shocked but supportive, wrapping me in a hug that felt like it would shield me from the world momentarily. That was the first domino to fall. I hadn't planned on telling anyone else at that moment, but over the next few days she insisted that I tell the whole family. I had dreaded this, feeling like I would be forced to relive the whole experience through their eyes, but I cautiously agreed. We settled on a family gathering one Saturday evening, with a homemade dinner that mirrored the kind of family moments we carried as tradition. When the time finally arrived, my heart raced as the table filled up and laughter enveloped the room. There was something comforting about the noise, but deep down I felt like I was wearing a neon sign over my head that screamed, "I have cancer." After dessert, as we were sipping hot coffee, Mia placed a hand on mine, giving me a nod of encouragement. I exhaled deeply and used her cue to launch into my confession. "I know everyone has been so happy lately, and I'm very happy for all of your successes, but I have something to share that will change things." I could sense the shift in the atmosphere as I revealed my diagnosis, and I braced myself for the onslaught of emotions that would follow. The initial reaction was shock. I remember their faces shifting, eyes widening, disbelief settling in. I felt like a puppet, and they were all at the strings, still reeling from the new reality. My father was the first to speak, his voice trembling. "Eliza, we're here for you, always." But the comfort that followed was double-edged. Callum and Mia immediately jumped into strategizing how to help me, each of them competing subtly over who could do more. "You know I can take some time off work," Callum suggested. In their responses lived a new layer of tension, one that arose from their desire to control the narrative. Each offer felt like a chain weighing me down. It was less about helping and more about them being visibly involved. In my care, a way for them to manage their feelings of helplessness over a situation they couldn't control. I sensed that the more they pushed, the more isolated I felt. I didn't want their pity. I didn't want to be the sick sister. I wanted to remain the strong sister, the Eliza they all naturally depended on. I needed the space to figure out how to navigate this journey on my terms. After a night filled with hugs, tears, and offers of help, I found myself wanting to retreat. "I'm not an a-hole for wanting space," I told myself repeatedly as the days wore on. "I love my family fiercely. They've been my rock, but allowing them to take over felt suffocating." After weeks of feeling enslaved, I began to withdraw. Again, this time from my own family. It's been a few weeks since I told them, and while I can appreciate their concern and love, I feel guilty for pulling away. The guilt gnaws at me, stirring into my already complicated feelings about my diagnosis. I haven't quite figured out how to balance my needs with their emotional responses. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to share my diagnosis sooner and wanting some personal space now? Or am I justified in my need to process this alone, even if it means distancing myself from those who care about me? I'm genuinely torn and could use some judgment on this. TLDR. Diagnosed with cancer, decided to keep it to myself for a while. Eventually told my family, but now I'm feeling overwhelmed by their reactions and want space. Am I being selfish, or is it okay to focus on my own needs? Am I the a-hole for choosing my career over family? I'm writing this for some clarity because I'm genuinely torn and feeling like I've stepped onto a minefield of emotions over the last few weeks. Let me give you some background. I'm a 29-year-old graphic designer, and for the past 5 years, I've been working toward a dream position in a well-known publishing house. I've overcome plenty of obstacles, worked long hours, and sacrificed relationships along the way. At times, I was pretty sure my friends thought I was a workaholic. I just wanted to make my mark in a competitive industry that often overlooks talent in favor of connections, which brings me to the current situation. Last month, I got a call that a position was finally available at the publishing house I'd been eyeing since college. It was everything I'd ever wanted, offering a salary that would allow me to live comfortably without the anxiety of constant financial strain. What's more, it promised to be an environment where I could hone my skills, learn from industry. veterans, and grow in ways I can barely even imagine. After confirming my interviews, I started to prepare myself mentally, ready to give my all. But then a wrench was thrown into the works. My sister, Emily, who lives in another state, called me one evening while I was doodling designs in my sketchbook. Her voice trembled as she shared the news. Her husband had left her and their 3 kids for someone younger. It was devastating, and I could hear the weight of despair hanging in the air. Emily, usually the strong one, seemed to be at her breaking point. "We're considering moving back home," she said, her tiny, hopeful voice betraying her. "I just need support, I can't do this alone." As the reality of her situation settled in like a cold winter chill, I felt my heart sink. She needed someone to step in and help with the kids, babysitting, supporting her emotionally, and helping her navigate this new world as a single mother. It made sense for her to move home, but part of me panicked at the thought of abandoning my career ambitions just as they were finally becoming a reality. That week was a whirlwind of emotions. Every evening after work, I found myself returning to the same dilemma: how could I choose between my sister and my most significant career opportunity? I turned the situation over in my mind like a Rubik's Cube, strategizing how I could incorporate both elements into my life. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. When I finally shared my thoughts with my closest friend Max, he listened, patiently. He's always been my sounding board, and this conversation was no different. "Dude, you can't jeopardize your career for your family. Emily will find a way. She always does," he said, tapping a pencil against his sketchpad. His confidence in Emily briefly reassured me, but guilt began to creep in. Was I a bad person for prioritizing my career, especially when my sister was in such a vulnerable place? A week later, I sat in the interview room of the publishing house, nerves tangling in my stomach like knotted shoelaces. The questions rolled in, and I tried to maintain my composure, pushing thoughts of Emily and her kids to the back of my mind. My passion shone through as I discussed projects I had previously completed, my eyes lighting up when I talked about my design inspirations. At the end, when they told me they'd be in touch soon, I felt a thrill rush through me. Maybe this dream was within my grasp, but I'll never forget the conversation that followed. After the interview, I called Emily to check in on her. "How are things going? Have you thought more about moving?" I asked, trying to gauge her state of mind. "I'm fine," she replied a little too quickly. "Listen, I just wanted to thank you. I know you're busy. I wouldn't want you to sacrifice your career for my problems." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had already felt overwhelmed by the weight of her struggles, but now her selflessness made me feel even guiltier. "No, Em, I mean it," she cut me off. "You deserve to chase your dreams. I'll figure it out, just don't hesitate on my account." As the days passed, my anxiety grew. I received the job offer 2 days later. It was exhilarating, but with the excitement, there was a nagging sense of dread. My initial reaction was pure joy, but it was quickly tempered by guilt over my decision. I accepted the role immediately, knowing it was the right choice for my career, but feeling as if I was leaving my sister hanging to dry. The decision inevitably affected our relationship. Emily didn't show any resentment, but I could hear it in her voice whenever we talked. The casual conversations turned into an exchange of silent undertones that were almost deafening. I was happy in my new position, but part of me felt like I was living with the specter of my decision hanging over me. Overwhelmed with responsibilities, she often called, needing a sounding board, a friend, and sometimes just someone to listen. One evening, she broke down during one of our calls. "I don't want to put all of this on you," she said between sobs. "You're just starting your life, and it's like I'm holding you back." I could feel the weight of the world in her voice, sending ice through my veins. "You're not holding me back, Em. I chose this because I wanted to, and I want to be here for you." "I wish I could do more," I replied, trying to assuage her pain. Days turned to weeks, and I began attending family gatherings without my sister. She didn't make it, citing that she just needed time to figure things out. It was hard seeing Everyone else connect while Emily was still grappling with her new reality. I felt guilty every time laughter filled the room, knowing she was home, making dinner for 3 little ones, likely pushing down her own pain. It all came to a head one Sunday. At a family barbecue, Emily finally confronted me. She poured her heart out about feeling like a failure, watching her friends flourish while she felt stuck. "You have no idea how much I thought you'd be here to help me process everything. It's like you've moved on with your life, and Emily, I'm trying to build my life," I interrupted, raising my voice. "I didn't mean to run away. I thought you understood." My voice cracked, and I could feel tears bubbling just below the surface. This was not how I imagined our relationship would evolve. "Understand what?" "That you've escaped while I'm drowning?" she shouted, her voice laced with anger and heartbreak. With that, I felt as though someone took the ground out from under my feet. Guilt, shame, and anger radiated through me. "You chose your job. You need to own that." I opened my mouth to respond, but the comment stung like a lash against my soul. I ran to my car and slammed the door, shaking with emotion as I drove away, the taste of salt on my lips. All those choices, working late, sacrificing weekends, waking up early, had they been worth it? I felt justified in pursuing my dreams, but in that moment, every choice felt selfish. Weeks passed after that, and I avoided conversations with Emily like I would avoid stepping on glass. But deep down, I knew I had to reach out. I couldn't bear living with the fracture I had created between us, especially knowing we were family. When I called her one evening, she answered, cautious. I swallowed hard, my nerves creeping back in like a shadow. "Can we talk?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't know what there is left to say," she replied quietly. "Maybe we can start fresh?" I suggested. "I've been thinking a lot about what I said. I didn't mean to make you feel like I was choosing my career over you. I just got swept up in the moment." The silence stretched between us like an unbridgeable chasm. The hurt was palpable, but I felt hopeful that we could find a way through this. "I'm in it for the long haul, Em. I want to be a part of your life and the kids' lives. I want us to support each other, but we need to communicate." Her breathing steadied on the other end of the line. "I'm just scared. I feel so lost, and it's hard seeing you move forward." "I know," I admitted. "But you'll find yourself again. Just give it time. Together we can navigate this. I'm here for you." That conversation sparked a new beginning. Slowly, we found our way back to each other, acknowledging that while dreams were crucial, so was family. I offered to help remotely where I could, managing evenings and weekends to be there for her and the kids, while she acknowledged that my choices were valid too. Am I the a-hole? I guess it depends on how you look at it. I chose my career, but I also chose my sister in the end. Life has taught me that ambition can coexist with love. And for all the guilt along the way, I'm still not entirely sure what the answer is, but I now know that balancing dreams and family is a delicate dance, a dance worth perfecting. Am I the a-hole for blocking my best friend from my wedding? Setting: a small town, vibrant with early autumn colors, where the golden leaves rustle like whispers in the cool breeze. The air smells of cinnamon and pine, and a light cloud cover allows the sun to peek through occasionally, creating a mosaic of light and shadow on the ground. I never imagined my wedding day would be a source of conflict, yet here I am, sitting on my couch, staring at my phone, debating whether to hit post. On Reddit, it's been a week since the argument with Hannah, my best friend since childhood. I am so overwhelmed with emotions that it feels like I'm watching a storm rage outside my window. Let me rewind. It's been just over a year since Tom and I got engaged. We had every intention of having a small, intimate wedding, a gathering of our closest friends and family to celebrate our love. What started as a simple Pinterest board brimming with ideas gradually transformed into a potential ordeal fraught with opinions, expectations, and unexpected decisions. While planning, Hannah stood by my side like a rock. We laughed over cake, flavors teared up during dress fittings, and even indulged in late-night discussions about seating charts. But somewhere along the line, things changed. About 3 months ago, I noticed Hannah acting strangely. At first, I brushed it off as pre-wedding jitters. After all, she was a big part of my planning committee. But over the following weeks, her mood became more pronounced. She started to make snide remarks about my choices. "Are you sure that dress flatters you? Or do you really think these flowers are going to match the vibe of the venue?" At first I shrugged it off. "She's just trying to help," I told myself. But soon I couldn't ignore the feeling that her words had shifted from genuine concern to something more bitter. I felt myself growing frustrated and confused. What had happened to my supportive sidekick? The tipping point came last Saturday. I had invited a small group of friends over for a bridal brunch at my house, and I might have overdone the mimosas a little. Who doesn't, right? As we all settled into a rhythm of laughter and celebration, Hannah launched a new attack. "You realize you're making a huge mistake, right? Getting married when you're so young?" At that moment, the room felt as though it had been plunged into silence. The cheerful banter froze as everyone turned their heads to Hannah, eyes wide with disbelief. Did she really just say that at my bridal brunch? "Hannah, this isn't the time or place for that," I retorted, my voice sharper than I intended. "Could you not rain on my parade for just one morning?" "Well, maybe if you didn't view marriage as a fairy tale, I wouldn't have to," she shot back. The anger in her voice was palpable, and I could feel my heart race. We continued to volley words back and forth, an emotional tennis match I hadn't asked for. Everyone around us tried to break the tension, but Hannah was unrelenting. Finally, I said something I regret, something that I wish I could take back in an instant. "I don't need this negativity in my life. If you can't support my decision to marry Tom, then maybe you shouldn't be at the wedding at all." The moment those words left my lips, I saw her expression change. The hurt in her eyes cut deeper than I anticipated. She seized the opportunity, packing up quickly and leaving. Without another word, the door shut with a finality that echoed in my heart, a sound that vibrated with unresolved tension and unspoken words. The fallout of that day has haunted me ever since. I felt justified in my reaction, but I couldn't shake off the guilt gnawing at my insides. Hannah and I had shared everything, from our dreams of the future to our deepest insecurities. Yet here we were, facing the fallout of a harsh exchange rather than the excitement of my upcoming wedding. Days passed, and we both found ourselves in a sort of estrangement. I sent texts trying to mend the rift. I poured out my feelings, explaining how crucial her support was. But instead of a response, I received silence, a silence that echoed in both our hearts. Finally, with my wedding date approaching, I made the decision. I would block Hannah from all wedding-related communications. It felt extreme, but I was overwhelmed, and the thought of her presence looming, full of potential negativity, stirred something dark within me. And so I did it. Yes, I blocked her from my wedding planning group chat, even went so far as to remove her from the guest list until I could figure out a solution. Just as I clicked block, a message pinged through. It was one of our mutual friends, Carla. "What's going on, Emily? Hannah is upset. You two need to sort this out. Do you really want to lose her over all this?" I felt a mix of indignation and sorrow. I wasn't the only one to blame. I was defending my joy while she was busy trying to cut it down. Yet I acknowledged the aching truth in Carla's words. Had I gone too far? Now here I am, typing furiously on Reddit, seeking some broader perspective. Was I wrong for cutting her out of my life during this pivotal moment? Am I the a-hole for prioritizing my wedding over a friendship of more than 15 years? I wish I could peel back the layers of this relationship and find something worth repairing. The conversation ping-ponging in my mind kept bringing me back to the heart of it all. My intentions. They were pure. I wanted a joyous occasion surrounded by love. Yet I also wanted a friend who supported my decisions, one who didn't try to shoot down my happiness. A few days later, Hannah finally reached out. A simple text as fragile as glass. "Can we talk?" I miss you. My heart raced. The possibility of mending things filled me with a mix of hope and trepidation. Could I face the confrontation? Could I accept the possibility that my wedding, a time meant for celebration, could also involve painful truths? As I read her message again, it struck me we were both flawed. We both made mistakes in this comedy of errors. Maybe it was time to set aside our egos for the sake of our friendship. With shaking hands, I typed my reply, "Yes, let's talk. I miss you too." And that, dear Reddit, is where I find myself now. Amid the preparations and turmoil, facing a choice that may define not just my wedding, but the trajectory of a friendship steeped in history. Am I the a-hole for blocking my best friend from my wedding? Or am I just a flawed human? Trying to navigate the tangled lines of love and friendship? I guess this is where I'll let the community weigh in before I step forward into the unknown. For now, I'm both hopeful and terrified, and maybe, just maybe, that's okay. Aita for choosing my daughter's education over my brother's wedding? I'm writing this after a night filled with confusion and guilt, and I could really use some outside perspective. So here goes. I'm a 36-year-old single mother to my 12-year-old daughter, Mia. I've dedicated my life to providing for her ever since her father left us when she was just a toddler. Without support, I've worked multiple jobs just to keep the lights on, but recently I managed to secure a promotion at my job, finally some financial stability. Naturally, I've shifted my focus towards saving for Mia's higher education. She's exceptionally bright, and it's been my dream to ensure she has the best opportunities possible. Now, my brother Jake is getting married in a month. We were never particularly close, but over the years we've maintained a cordial relationship. Here's where things get tricky. The wedding is set for the same day as an important school event for Mia. It's the annual science fair, a culmination of a year's worth of hard work. Mia has poured her heart into her project, a model of an eco-friendly home that incorporates solar energy, rainwater collection, and composting. Her passion for the environment shines through everything she does. I knew how much it meant to her, and as her mother, I felt I needed to support her. Initially, I mentioned to Jake that I would miss his wedding because of the science fair. I thought he would understand. But the moment the words left my mouth, his expression changed. Jake and his fiancée immediately became upset, insisting that family should come first and that I should just take Mia along to the wedding. They argued it would be a good life lesson about prioritizing family events, but how could I expect Mia to thrive in her education if I made her skip something so important? I pleaded with Jake, explaining that the science fair was crucial not only for her school grades but also for her self-esteem. Jake shot back, saying that family was all that would matter in her life, that I was being selfish for not choosing him over a school project, and that this decision would affect our family's dynamic going forward. The tension grew, and what was meant to be a simple conversation turned into a heated argument. "Are you really choosing a stupid science project over your brother's wedding?" he bellowed. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. Part of me wanted to scream yes because I believed in Mia. Instead, I bit my tongue in an effort to retain what little shard of familial ties remained intact. Days passed, and I struggled with the fallout. I spoke to Mia about it, and to my surprise, she was adamantly against attending the wedding. "Mom, this is my chance to show everyone what I can do!" she exclaimed, bright-eyed with enthusiasm. I knew then that I had made the right choice. Supporting her dreams meant more than fulfilling a family obligation. Nonetheless, the family backlash began quickly. Jake took to social media to announce his engagement and the upcoming wedding, leaving out any mention of me. He started posting passive-aggressive comments about selfishness and real priorities that I felt were aimed directly at me. My mother weighed in with phone calls and texts, insisting I was hurting our family's reputation and that being absent from the day would tarnish our relationship forever. I was torn. Guilt crept in like shadows, gnawing at me over the weeks leading up to the wedding. But every time I looked at Mia, proudly displaying her project around our kitchen table or excitedly rehearsing her presentation, my heart swelled with hope for her future. She deserved the chance to shine, and I wasn't about to dim that light for a wedding I believed would only create additional family strife. On the day of the science fair, I packed Mia's project into the car and drove to the school, my heart pounding with a blend of anxiety and pride. The event was bustling with students, parents, and teachers, all eager to see the amazing work. Mia lit up as she explained her project to judges and attendees. Watching her engage with admiration in her eyes, I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude for having made the right choice. As the day progressed, Mia received the Best Project Award, a triumph that was palpable. The moment she beamed while holding that trophy felt like a victory for both of us. I noticed some peers with their parents congratulating them, and in that moment a wave of sadness hit me, for the relationships I felt were rapidly fraying back. Home. Mia saw the look on my face and squeezed my hand. "You did it too, Mom," she said, her excitement drowning out my worries. Later that evening, we celebrated with homemade pizza and ice cream. Mia retold every detail of her day, brimming with pride, and I reveled in her joy, even if my phone remained silent. But it didn't last long. As expected, Jake called me later that evening, and the anger in his voice cut through the happiness I had just shared with Mia. "You seriously missed my wedding, Jess? For a stupid piece of cardboard and glue, you've made your choice clear," Jake said, his voice thick with disappointment. I could hear his voice break as he continued, but it didn't change my heart. "I did this for Mia," I explained, doing my best to remain calm. "Family is important, but her education is more important for her future. I hope you understand." He didn't. The line went dead after a few more heated words, and I stood there, staring at my phone, feeling the gravity of my decision weigh heavily on my chest. My family was fracturing, and though I stood firm in my choice, it stung bitterly. In the following days, I attempted to keep the peace, but the invitation to family gatherings was noticeably absent. I wasn't certain if I had permanently severed familial bonds, or if this was merely a temporary situation fueled by hurt feelings and pride. I reached out to my mother, who expressed disappointment, but I could sense a flicker of understanding in her tone. My hope was that time would mend our rift. Weeks passed with the wedding slipping further back in memory. My focus shifted to supporting Mia as she adapted back to school life, approaching the end of the school year and preparing for summer. I found strength in her resilience. She was thriving, proving to me every day that I could have chosen the right path. After weeks of silence, Jake finally texted me out of the blue, wanting to meet up. I felt my heart race and my stomach twist at the prospect. What would he say? Would he condemn me again? We met at a local coffee shop, an easy, neutral ground. The tension was palpable as we faced each other, words hanging unspoken in the air. Jake took a breath, then let it out slowly. "I'm sorry I blew up on you," he began. "We didn't take into account how much that science fair meant to Mia." I was surprised. To see him soften, I blinked hard, staving off tears. "I know how important family is, Jake, but being a mother is my primary role now. I can't back down when it comes to supporting Mia's dreams." His expression shifted to remorse. "You've always been a great mom, Jess. I didn't want to admit it, but I realized now I was being selfish." Eventually, we began to talk about the wedding, and to my surprise, he shared good news about the day. The ceremony had gone off beautifully, albeit without me. I could hear a thread of emotion in his voice. "I just wish you had been there," he admitted. We left the shop not perfectly reconciled, but in a better place than when we arrived. It was an imperfect compromise. Jake promised to keep an open line of communication, and I apologized for how things escalated. We both recognized that we had a long road ahead, but perhaps we could walk it together again. I left the coffee shop that day with my heart lighter. Still, the thought lingered in the back of my mind. Aita for choosing my daughter's education over my brother's wedding? While I struggled with that question, I realized I didn't need an answer. In supporting Mia, I had chosen love, a complicated yet beautiful love, while leaving room for growth and eventual reconciliation within our family. Ate for not inviting my sister to my wedding after she disrespected my fiancé? I often find myself scrolling through Reddit, tagged as a casual lurker, but today I feel the need to post my dilemma as a means of seeking advice. My story begins. About 10 months ago, back when I was juggling engagement plans and familial tensions, and now it has come to a head as I prepare to walk down the aisle. Let me set the stage. I'm Mia, a 28-year-old marketing manager, and I recently became engaged to Ethan, the love of my life, who works as a software developer. Ethan is kind, funny, and has a way of making me feel secure in my own skin, which is something I've struggled with my entire life, especially in relation to my sister, Lauren. Lauren, who is 26, has always been the golden child in our family. She excelled academically, went to a prestigious university, and rose quickly in her career as a successful lawyer. In contrast, I often felt like the just okay sibling, comfortable in my own skin, but never quite living up to the family pedestal my sister was placed upon. Now, let's talk about the party that set the stage for my current dilemma. Last month we hosted a small engagement celebration at my parents' house. I went all out, decorating with twinkling lights and homemade decorations, a true representation of Ethan and me. So we had our closest friends and family there, including Lauren. To be clear, my sister and I don't have the best relationship. We don't publicly fight, but there's always an underlying tension, a sense of competition that seems to loom between us. I hoped this celebration would help bridge the gap. During the event, everything was going well until the time came for the speeches. I was so excited that Lauren, who had a toast prepared, was finally going to acknowledge me and my fiancé. But when the time came, she got up and instead of a loving toast, proceeded to roast Ethan lightly with humorous anecdotes that were completely inappropriate. Remember that time you became a vegan for 2 months and couldn't even spell? Quinoa, she laughed while people forced out chuckles. Don't worry. We know you'll bounce back when you smell bacon. I felt Ethan stiffen beside me, and my heart plummeted. What should have been a moment of joy for us turned into one of discomfort. After the toast, I pulled my sister aside, my face heated with anger. "What were you doing?" I asked, my voice clipped. "That was so disrespectful," she shrugged, her eyes dancing with mischief. "I was just teasing him. Lighten up, Mia. No one was offended," I scoffed. "It's not about the sentiment of teasing, Lauren. You weren't trying to be funny. You were putting him down in front of everyone. You know he takes pride in his choices." I turned and walked away, the air thick with disappointment. The evening continued, but the spark had dimmed for me. I opted to not confront her again, but I made a mental note. Fast forward a few weeks, I was still fuming over what had happened. Ethan, being the compassionate man he is, advised me to talk it out with my sister. "You can't change the past, Mia," he said, "but it's important to express how you feel. Otherwise, it'll simmer and boil over in a way that's unhealthy." For everyone taking his counsel, I reached out to Lauren to address the issue. What I expected was a heartfelt apology, or at the very least, an acknowledgement. But when I brought it up, she waved it off and laughed. "It's all in good fun, Mia. God, you're so sensitive. This is why you'll never be the favorite." At that moment, I felt my heart break. I had tried to mend our relationship for so long, but Lauren continued to sow seeds of discord. It became crystal clear that she didn't see my happiness as a priority. She was more interested in her own sense of humor, even if it meant distastefully poking at someone I love. This leads me to my wedding planning, a time that should be filled with love and joy. When I sat down to make my guest list, I hesitated at Lauren's name. Should I invite her after how she treated Equan? After much deliberation, I made the hard choice. I wouldn't invite her. This wedding was about celebrating love, not about enduring criticism from a family member who would rather poke fun than support. I initially told my parents about my decision, and my dad's reaction was understanding. "You should stand by the people who genuinely care for you," he said. But my mom? Oh boy, that's where the storm began. "Mia, you can't do this," she pleaded. "It's your sister. You're going to hurt her feelings." Mom, her Behavior was disrespectful, and I won't tolerate it in my life any longer, I countered, already feeling defensive. But Mom's arguments ranged from, family is everything, to, you need forgiveness in your heart. She thought I was being petty, stuck in some sort of sibling rivalry. Things escalated further when, a week later, Lauren reached out. With a tone dripping in venom, she called me to express her disappointment in my decision. So, this is how you want to handle our relationship? By shutting me out? This won't end well for you, Mia. Look who's going to get married and not invited their own sister. Who are you trying to impress? I was shaken, my resolve quaking under her judgment. But this time I held firm. I calmly reminded Lauren about our previous exchanges, reiterating why I felt the need to take a step back. That didn't go over well. I'm not apologizing for being myself. If you can't handle it, maybe your wedding isn't the event for me, she hissed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. She hung up, leaving me in a fetal position on my living room floor, filled with a mix of regret, annoyance, and, strangely enough, relief. The burden of having her in my life felt lighter. Days passed and the wedding approached. My mom still pushed back against my decision. With no RSVP from Lauren, I sensed the brewing storm. News travels fast, and as the wedding day neared, I braced for impact. I knew the fallout would come. On the day of the wedding, as I walked down the aisle in my beautiful white dress, my eyes locked onto Ethan's, and in that moment, everything else fell away. For me, it was a celebration of love. It didn't matter who was missing or who was critical. All that mattered was that I was marrying the man who cherished and defended me. After the ceremony, there was a buzz in the air, and family members approached me with hushed tones. My mother finally caught me amidst the sea of guests. "Lauren's angry," she said, an edge of apprehension in her voice. "I've accepted that," I replied, even though a part of me knew I'd have to face her consequences eventually. Week after the wedding, the waves of fallout crashed viciously against my heart. I received a social media post from Lauren, which she tagged me in. The caption read, "Some people are too selfish to recognize family. Love you all. Cheers to the toxic people who think they can dictate who is welcome in their life." The post sat there on my feed like a painful thorn. My heart raced with hurt and anger. I decided to respond. Friends and family deserved to see the truth. In a comment I wrote, "Family is built on love and respect, not competition. Your behavior hurt me deeply, and I refuse to let it take precedence over my happiness. You're always welcome should you choose to respect that." The aftermath was intense. My mother endlessly scolded me for airing family grievances online, while Lauren lashed out at anyone who dared to side with me. I didn't regret my response. I'd found my own voice in the chaos. Now, back to where I began. The verge of a culmination. I ask you, Aite, for not inviting my sister to my wedding after her disrespect toward Ethan. I chose to prioritize my fiancé and my own happiness. I'm starting to feel okay about that. Still now, my mom's constant pleas take me back to the weight of family ties, but my heart is determined to remain free. After all, love is not meant to come at the cost of self-respect. Family is there to uplift, not tear apart.